After the wedding, my son's calls slowly disappeared from home. At first, I did not notice it. Or maybe I noticed, but I did not want to believe it. When he got married, I smiled the whole day. I held his hand at the wedding hall and whispered, "Be happy." I meant it. I truly meant it. A mother does not raise her son to keep him close forever. She raises him so he can walk forward, even if that means walking away. But I did not know that walking away could be so quiet. In the beginning, he called every evening. "Ma, did you eat?" "Yes, Beta. I ate."
His voice would be warm.
A little tired, but still mine. Then the calls became shorter. Then they became rushed. And then they began to disappear. At first, I told myself he was busy. Newly married life has many responsibilities. New routines. New adjustments. I understood that. I had been a young bride once too. But there is a difference between being busy and being gone. The house did not change. The same walls. The same clock ticking in the living room. The same teacup I used every morning. But the silence changed. It grew. And one evening, when I looked at my phone and realized 3 days had passed without his voice, I felt something inside me shift. Not anger.
Not blame.
Just a quiet emptiness. That was the day I understood that sometimes love does not leave loudly. It fades softly. Before the wedding, it was always just the two of us. His father passed away when my son was only 12 years old. From that day, I learned how to be both strong and gentle at the same time. I worked small jobs, sewing clothes for neighbors, cooking snacks for school events. I did not earn much, but I made sure he never felt poor. He was a quiet child, thoughtful. He would sit beside me while I stitched clothes and do his homework at the same table. Sometimes he would say, "Ma, when I grow up, I will buy you a big house." I would laugh and say, "This house is enough for me." And it was, because he filled it. Our evenings were simple. Dinner at 7, news on the television, then tea before bed. He would tell me about his office work once he started earning. When he got his first salary, he placed the envelope in my hands.
"For you," he said.
I did not open it. I only held it against my chest. "I don't need your money," I told him softly. "I just need you." He smiled. Back then, I did not know that one day even that would feel like too much to ask. When he told me about the girl he wanted to marry, I listened carefully.
"She is kind, Ma," he said.
"You will like her." And I wanted to. I truly did. When I met her, she was polite, soft-spoken. She touched my feet and called me Ma from the first day. I felt relief. I told myself my son chose well. The wedding was beautiful. Lights everywhere. Music. Relatives laughing. I stood near the stage and watched him standing beside his bride. He looked grown. Happy. Different. But that is normal, I told myself. Marriage changes people. It adds responsibility. It adds partnership. After the wedding, they moved into an apartment closer to his office. It made sense. The commute from our house was long. "Ma, you can come stay anytime," he said while packing his things. I nodded. But I did not want to be a guest in my own son's life. So I stayed back in the house we built together. The first week after the wedding, he called every night. "How are you, Ma?" "I am fine." "Did you take your medicine?" "Yes." His wife would sometimes speak too. "Ma, we will visit on Sunday." And they did. We ate together. I cooked his favorite lentils and rice. He ate quietly, smiling. But I noticed something small. He checked his phone often. It was not wrong. Just different. Different is sometimes the first step toward distance. One evening, I called him first. It rang longer than usual. Finally, he answered. "Ma, I am in the middle of something. I will call you later." "Okay," I said. He did not call later. The next day, he called briefly.
"Sorry, Ma.
Yesterday was busy." "It's all right," I said. And it was.
Or at least I told myself it was.
Days turned into weeks. The calls slowly changed from long conversations to quick check-ins. "Everything okay?" "Yes." "Good. Talk later."
Talk later.
Later became tomorrow. Tomorrow became next week. And slowly my evenings became quieter. I did not complain. A mother does not want to be heavy on her child's heart. But sometimes at night, I would sit by the window and look at the street. I would remember when he used to return home from school, running, throwing his bag on the sofa.
Ma.
I am hungry. That voice used to fill the house. Now the house filled itself with silence.
I told myself, this is life.
Children grow. They move forward. But I never expected that forward would feel like disappearing. This was only the beginning. I did not know then that small silences can grow into walls. And I did not know that one day, I would wait for a phone call that would not come at all. The silence did not come all at once. It came in small pieces, like dust settling on furniture so slowly that you do not see it at first. At the beginning, I still waited for his evening calls with hope. I would finish dinner early. I would wash the dishes and wipe my hands carefully before sitting down with my phone beside me. Sometimes it rang. Sometimes it did not. When it did ring, I answered quickly, trying not to sound too eager. Hello, Beta. Yes, Ma. Just calling to check.
His voice was different now.
Not cold. Not rude. Just distracted. In the background, I could hear utensils. Or television. Or his wife speaking softly. I would keep the call short. I did not want to interrupt his new life. Are you both eating well? I would ask. Yes, Ma. Take care of each other. Yes. And then the call would end. 3 minutes. Sometimes 2.1 Sunday, they did not come for lunch. He sent a message instead. Ma, we have plans today. Next week. I read the message twice.
Plans.
I sat at the dining table alone.
The
food was already cooked. His favorite lentils. The rice still warm. I packed everything into containers and placed them in the refrigerator. It's okay, I whispered to myself. Young couples need their own time. I remembered my own early days of marriage. I remembered wanting space. I remembered wanting to build my own little world. So I tried to be understanding. But understanding does not remove loneliness. The visits became less regular. Once every 2 weeks. Then once a month. And when they did visit, something felt different. They did not stay long. He would look at his watch. We should leave before traffic gets bad, he would say. I would nod. Of course. Traffic is important. Time is important. Everything seemed important, except sitting together without hurry. One evening, I called him because I felt a little dizzy. Nothing serious. Just weakness. The phone rang many times. No answer. I waited. After an hour, I called again. This time, he answered. Ma, why are you calling so much? His tone was not angry, but it was sharp. I was feeling a little unwell, I said quietly. Oh, you should have sent a message. I thought maybe you were free. I am at dinner with friends, he said. I will call tomorrow. Tomorrow. That word again. I felt foolish. I am fine now, I told him. Don't worry. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at the wall. I remembered when he used to wake up at night just because I coughed. Ma, are you okay? Back then, my small discomfort mattered. Now, it felt like I needed an appointment that I never told him that the dizziness was not the only reason I called. I just wanted to hear his voice. Sometimes, the body finds excuses when the heart is lonely. His wife stopped calling me too. At first, she used to send messages. Ma, how are you? Ma, I tried your recipe today. Slowly, those messages stopped. When I called her, she sounded polite, but distant. Yes, Ma. Everything is fine, Ma. Nothing more. I wondered if I had done something wrong. Did I say something careless? Did I ask too many questions? Mothers sometimes forget that their concern can feel like pressure. So I began asking less. One afternoon, I overheard something that stayed with me. They had come to visit. He was in the kitchen with his wife. I was in the living room, arranging teacups. Their voices were low, but I could hear enough. We can't come every week, she said gently. We need our own space. I know, he replied, but she waits. There was silence. Then she said, You don't have to feel guilty.
Guilty.
That word touched me deeply. I did not want my son to feel guilty for living his life. Love should never feel like a burden. I walked into the kitchen with a smile.
Tea is ready, I said.
They both looked at me quickly, as if worried I had heard something. I pretended I had not. After that day, I changed. I stopped calling first. If he called, I answered. If he did not, I stayed quiet. I told myself, let him breathe. Let him build his own home. But inside, I felt something slowly closing. Like a door that used to stay open, now gently pulled halfway shut. Weeks passed. Sometimes 5 days would go by without a word. Then suddenly a short call.
Sorry, Ma.
Busy week. It's all right, I would reply. And I meant it. But each all right felt heavier than the last. One night, I sat at the dining table and looked at the empty chair across from me. For years, that chair belonged to him. I used to place his plate there without thinking. Now I only placed one plate.
Meaning?
The house had not changed, but its sound had. There was no laughter in the evenings. No footsteps rushing to the bathroom. No voice calling from another room. Just the ticking clock.
Tick, tick, tick.
Sometimes I would leave the television on just to hear something human, even if it was strangers arguing in a drama serial. Silence can be louder than noise. I began visiting the temple more often.
Not to complain.
Just to sit.
To breathe.
To remind myself that children are not possessions. They are travelers. We guide them for some time and then they choose their own roads. But no one tells you how quiet your road becomes after they leave. One evening, he called unexpectedly. Ma, we might not visit next month.
Why?
I asked softly. We are planning a short trip. With her family? Yes. I paused. That is good, I said. And it was good. But something inside me understood. He was building memories somewhere else now. And that is natural. Still, I missed being part of those memories. After that call, I did not cry. I just sat still for a long time. Sometimes pain is not loud. It is a slow understanding. A quiet realization that things are changing and you cannot hold them the way you used to. The calls grew further apart. The visits became rare. And slowly, I stopped waiting at the dining table. I stopped cooking his favorite meals unless I knew for sure he was coming. I began adjusting to the new rhythm of my life. But adjusting does not mean it does not hurt. It only means you learn to carry the hurt more quietly. I did not know then that this distance was only the beginning. I did not know that a moment was coming that would test my heart in ways I never expected. The small silences were growing. And soon they would turn into something I could no longer ignore. There is always one day, one moment, when you realize the distance is no longer small. It has become real. For me, that day came on a quiet Thursday afternoon. I remember it clearly. The sky was pale. Not sunny. Not cloudy. Just dull. I was folding laundry when my phone rang. It was my son. I smiled immediately. Hello, Beta. Ma, are you sitting? He asked. His voice was serious. Yes, I said slowly. What happened? There was a pause. We are thinking of moving. Moving, I repeated.
Yes.
To another city. There is a better opportunity for me there. For a second, I did not speak. Another city. How far? I asked softly. About 5 hours away. 5 hours. 5 hours by car. 5 hours between me and my son. Oh, I said quietly. That is good. A better opportunity is always good. He exhaled, as if relieved. I knew you would understand. Of course I would understand. I always did. After the call ended, I sat in silence. 5 hours. Before, even if he did not visit, I knew he was close. In the same city, breathing the same air. Now he would be somewhere else entirely. I stood up slowly and walked to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water, but my hands were shaking. This is normal, I told myself. Children grow. Children move. This is life. But life feels different when it begins to take something away. They came to visit that Sunday. They looked excited. His wife was smiling brightly. This will be so good for us, she said. New start. New place. I nodded. That is wonderful. My son looked at me carefully. Ma, you can come stay with us whenever you want. Whenever you want. I knew what that meant. It meant visits. Short stays. Not belonging. I did not want to live in their spare room. I did not want to adjust my footsteps to someone else's house. So I smiled and said, we will see. The weeks passed quickly. He was busy preparing for the move. Paperwork.
Packing.
Arrangements. The calls became even shorter. Ma, I'll call later.
Ma, I'm driving.
Ma, I'll talk tomorrow. Tomorrow again. Everything was tomorrow. The day before they moved, he came alone. He stood in the living room and looked around the house. It was quiet. This house hasn't changed, he said.
No, iraplia.
It waits. He smiled, but it was a sad smile. Ma, don't say that. I am only telling the truth. We sat together for a while. Just the two of us. Like before.
For a few minutes, it felt the same.
Then he checked his watch. I should go. I walked him to the door. Before stepping out, he hugged me. Not quickly. Not rushed. A real hug. For a moment, I closed my eyes and held him.
Tightly.
He smelled the same.
Familiar.
Safe. I will call every day, he whispered. I nodded. I know. After he left, I stood at the door for a long time, listening to the silence that followed. The next day they moved. He sent a message when they reached. Reached safely, Ma. I replied, good. Take care. That night, I waited for his promised call. He did not call. I told myself he must be tired. The next day, he called briefly. Everything is hectic here, he said. Still unpacking. Of course, I replied. Take your time. Days passed. The calls were not daily. They were not even weekly. Sometimes 10 days would pass. Sometimes more. One evening, I gathered courage. I called him. The phone rang and rang. Finally, he answered. Yes, Ma? I just wanted to hear your voice, I said honestly. There was silence on the other end. Then he sighed softly. Ma, you know things are different now.
Different.
Yes, I said. I know. You can't expect everything to be like before. I swallow. I am not expecting anything. I just don't want you to feel hurt if I can't call often. His words were careful.
Polite.
But they cut deeper than anger would have. I am not hurt, I said quietly. But I was. After that conversation, something inside me shifted. It was not anger. It was understanding. A painful understanding.
He was building his life.
And, in that life, I was no longer central. I was on the side. And maybe that is how it should be. But knowing something is natural does not make it easy. A month later, something happened that broke me quietly.
It was my birthday.
I do not celebrate much. But he always remembered. Even when he was in college, he would call at midnight.
Happy birthday, Ma.
This year, midnight came.
12 o'clock. He said awake.
The phone did not ring. I told myself he might call in the morning. Morning passed. Afternoon passed. Evening came. No call. At night, around 9, I received a message. Sorry, Ma. Busy day. Happy birthday. I stared at the screen for a long time. Just a message. No voice.
No words.
I typed back. Thank you, Beta. Then I placed the phone face down. For the first time, I cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quiet tears that fell without sound. It was not about the birthday. It was about realizing that I had slowly moved to the background of his life. That night, I made a decision. I would stop waiting. Not because I loved him less, but because waiting was hurting me more. I would let him call when he wanted. I would not measure love by frequency. I would not count days. I would not sit by the phone. I would live my life too, even if it felt empty at first. But deep inside, one question remained. When did we become polite strangers? When did Ma, did you eat, turn into sorry busy? When did love become scheduled? I did not have answers. Only silence. And silence can sometimes teach more than words. The distance was now real. The calls were rare. The visits almost gone. But I did not know that something even more difficult was ahead. A moment that would test whether love can survive quiet separation. After my birthday passed quietly, something inside me became still. Not broken, just still. I stopped checking my phone every hour. I stopped waiting for the sound of it ringing. If it rang, I answered. If it did not, I let the day move on. At first, the silence felt heavy, like walking in a room where furniture had been removed. The space felt bigger but emptier. But slowly, I began to understand something important. My life had become centered around waiting. Waiting for his calls. Waiting for visits. Waiting for moments that no longer came. And maybe that was not fair to myself. One morning, I stood outside in the small courtyard behind my house. There were 2 plants there that my son had planted when he was in school.
They were taller now. Strong.
Independent. They did not need my hands every day anymore. They grew on their own. I touched one of the leaves gently. Maybe children are like this too, I thought. We water them for years. We protect them from harsh sun. And one day, they no longer need our shade. That does not mean they stopped growing because of us. It only means they are growing beyond us. That thought gave me a strange kind of peace. I began changing my routine. In the afternoons, instead of sitting with my phone, I started visiting a nearby community center. They needed help teaching small children basic reading and writing. I had time. And I had patience. The first day I went, I felt nervous.
Would I fit in?
Would anyone listen? But when the children smiled at me and said, "Auntie, will you read this story?" my heart felt warm again. It was a different kind of love. Not the love of a child you raise. But still meaningful. Still real. Weeks passed. I began feeling lighter. The evenings were still quiet, but they were no longer painful. Sometimes I would cook simple meals for myself and sit by the window, watching the sky change colors. I started writing in a small notebook too. Not complaints. Just thoughts. Memories. Gratitude. And sometimes letters I never sent. One letter began like this. "My son, I miss your voice. But I understand your silence." I never sent it. Some feelings are meant to stay private. One afternoon, my phone rang unexpectedly. It was him. I answered calmly. "Hello." "Ma," he said softly. "Are you busy?"
No.
There was a pause. "I've been meaning to call more," he said. "Things have just been complicated." I listened. "I know," I replied gently. "You don't sound upset." "I am not upset." And in that moment, I realized I truly wasn't. I was no longer holding expectations tightly. Love feels different when you release control.
He spoke longer that day.
About work stress. About small disagreements at home. About feeling pressure to manage everything. "I thought marriage would make things easier," he admitted quietly. "It makes things different," I said. He laughed softly. "I guess I forgot that you went through all this too." "I did," I replied. "And I made mistakes too." He was silent for a moment.
Ma.
"I'm sorry if I've been distant." I did not rush to answer. "Distance happens," I said slowly. "It does not mean love disappears." There was another pause. "I miss sitting at your table," he said. That sentence warmed something deep inside me. "You are always welcome," I told him. And I meant it without pressure. After that call, the conversations did not suddenly become daily again. But they became honest. Sometimes he would call late at night. "Ma, are you awake?" "Yes. Just wanted to hear your voice." I would smile in the darkness. Life was not returning to the way it used to be, but it was finding a new balance. A quieter balance. Months later, they visited for a weekend. It was not a rushed visit this time. They stayed 2 days. His wife seemed more relaxed too. She helped me in the kitchen. We spoke about simple things. Recipes. Weather. Neighbors. At one point, she said softly, "Ma, I hope you did not feel left out after we moved." I looked at her carefully. "I felt the change," I admitted. "But change is not always wrong." She nodded. We were just trying to adjust. I know. Sometimes, misunderstandings are not born from cruelty. They are born from fear. Fear of losing independence. Fear of failing in a new role. Fear of not balancing everything well. We were all learning. That evening, we sat at the dining table again. All three of us. For the first time in a long time, the conversation flowed easily. No one checked the clock. No one rushed. When they left the next day, I did not feel abandoned. I felt peaceful, because I had stopped holding them too tightly, and maybe that allowed them to return more freely. I realized something important during those months of silence. A mother's love does not shrink when a child grows distant. But sometimes, it must change its shape. It must move from holding to allowing, from waiting to living, from expecting to accepting. That does not mean the heart stops missing. It only means the heart learns to breathe differently. There is something I understand now that I did not understand before. Love changes, not because it weakens, but because life moves. When my son's calls slowly disappeared from home, I thought I was losing him. I thought the silence meant something had broken between us. But silence does not always mean absence. Sometimes it simply means space. And space can be painful, but it can also be necessary. For many months, I measured love by sound. How often the phone rang. How long the conversations lasted. How many times he visited. But love is not a clock. It does not follow a schedule. It does not send reminders. It simply exists in quieter forms. My phone still does not ring every day. Sometimes a week passes. Sometimes longer. But when it rings now, I answer with calm joy. Not desperation. Not hidden hurt. Just warmth. Because I know something now that I did not understand before. Love does not measure itself by frequency. It measures itself by truth. And even if my son's calls once slowly disappeared from home, his love did not. It only grew quieter, but I still remember the days when he was small. When he could not sleep without holding my hand. When he would run to me after school and say, "Ma, guess what happened today?" Back then, I was his whole world, and I held that role tightly, maybe too tightly, because I forgot that one day his world would grow bigger. And that is not betrayal. That is growth. If you are listening to my story, maybe you understand this feeling. Maybe your child moved away. Maybe the phone rings less often than it used to. Maybe you sit at the dining table and look at an empty chair. If that is you, I want to tell you something gently. You are not forgotten. You are not replaced. You are simply part of a foundation. And foundations are not always seen. But they hold everything up. One evening, not long ago, my son called unexpectedly. "Ma," he said, "I was telling someone about how you raised me alone. I don't think I ever thanked you properly." I smiled. "You don't have to thank your mother." "I do," he replied softly, "because now I understand how hard it must have been." That conversation was short, but it was full. Full of honesty. Full of recognition. Sometimes children understand later.
Not when we want them to.
But when life teaches them. I have also learned something about myself. For a long time, I believed my purpose was only to be needed. To cook.
To care.
To answer calls.
To wait.
But I am more than waiting. I am still a person with thoughts, dreams, and quiet strength. When I began teaching those small children at the community center, I found a new rhythm in my days. I found laughter again. Not the same laughter as before, but still real. Still warm. Life did not end when the calls became fewer. It simply asked me to grow too. Now, when my phone rests on the table and does not ring, I do not stare at it. I water my plants. I read. I cook simple meals. Sometimes I even laugh at television shows by myself. And when the phone does ring, I answer with happiness, not hurt. "Hello, Beta." "Ma, I miss your cooking." "Then come eat." I reply softly. Sometimes he does. Sometimes he does not. And that is all right. Because love is no longer something I chase. It is something I trust. I no longer ask, "Why don't you call more?" Instead, I ask, "Are you happy?" And when he says, "Yes," I believe him. That is enough for me. A mother's heart does not shrink when her child moves away. It stretches. It learns to love from a distance. It learns to release without breaking. If I could speak to my younger self, the woman who waited by the phone, counting days, I would tell her this. Do not measure your worth by how often someone calls. Do not confuse silence with rejection. Do not let waiting become your only purpose.
Love deeply.
But live fully. Children are not meant to stay in our hands forever. They are meant to walk ahead. And sometimes, when we stop holding too tightly, they look back more often. Tonight, as I sit by the window, the house feels quiet. But it no longer feels empty. The walls still hold memories. The clock still ticks. The dining table still stands strong. And so do I. My son's calls may have slowly disappeared from home. But love did not disappear. It simply changed its shape. And I changed with it.